A particle system can be defined as simply a large collection of similar objects behaving in a similar way. And those objects, little pieces of geometry, can be configured to create an incredible variety of visual effects. Anything from water to smoke to sparks. You can do fire and explosions, even weather effects, like maybe a snowstorm or a hurricane or tornado, can all be quickly added to a scene by way of a particle system. Most particle effects come by way of creating what is referred to as an emitter somewhere in your scene. That emitter doesn't render, but does serve as the specific location where the particles will be generated from. In other words, where in the scene they'll be released. Over in the command panel in the Create column, the various particle systems you have available can be found by going under the Standard Primitives tab and choosing Particle System. There's 7 systems to choose from, each being designed to do something a little different, and each coming with a set of controls that give you the ability to adjust a wide variety of parameters. Things like the particle's look, how many are emitted, and when the emission starts and stops. There's speed controls, size controls, all kinds of things. Let's make a few real quick. Here's one called a spray. Here's one referred to as snow. And over on the right, I'll create one that's called a super spray. Most particle system icons will have an arrow or pointer of some kind that represents the direction that their particles will flow as they spill out. You see that on each of the 3 systems that I've created. The spray on the left-hand side of the view works well for creating water-type effects. Things like rain or a fountain or maybe what shoots out of a garden hose. The snow particle system in the middle is ideal for creating things like falling snow or maybe confetti. While the super spray, positioned over on the right-hand side, serves as one of the most versatile particle systems in Max, capable of creating effects like sparks and fireworks and smoke, just to name a few. When making your adjustments, because of the sheer number of settings, you'll many times find it helpful to expand the number of panels in the right-hand column. You can do that by merely holding your mouse on where the viewports connect with the command panel and dragging to the left. On the super spray, I'm going to change the number of particles that are displaying in our view and spread those particles out just a tad. As I scrub over the timeline, you'll see the difference that's made. I'll take the number of panes in my command panel back down to 1. There's also a special effects system called a particle ray, or P-array for short. The P-array allows you to pick an actual object in your scene as the particle emitter. So for an example, if we had a log on the fire throwing out a flame, that would make the particle array our weapon of choice. I'll drop one on the left-hand side of the view. Then, heading back to the Create column on the right, I'll make a sphere off to the other side. Reselecting the P-array, then heading back to its controls, I can then select the sphere as my particle emitting object. Once doing that, I'll increase the percentage of particles playing in the view so we can see just exactly how that works. Scrubbing the timeline, you now see it's the sphere that's emitting the particles. The P-array is also ideal for creating both explosions or maybe something in your scene breaking apart. Once you've chosen your object emitter, you then simply decide on the number of chunks that you want your surface to break into. And whether or not you want those fragments to spin or rotate in any way as they do break off. So after a few adjustments, I've got 15 fragments blowing off of the sphere, those fragments spinning or rotating a little bit as they do. And you've got the big enchilada, something that Max calls particle flow. A little advanced for our fundamentals title here, but the P-flow is a node-based particle system that works by connecting or wiring together what are called events. each particle in the system then traveling from one event to the other for the purpose of changing both the look and behavior of the particle over time. Once the icon's been created in the view, you then open what is called Particle View. I'll go ahead and expand that full screen so we can get a better look. Within the Particle View, you can add what are called operators and tests to individual events. That's done by dragging and dropping names from the bottom left up into the event window at the top. Once the operators and/or tests are added in, you simply wire the events together. Those events, played over time, then change the behavior and the look of the particle. Now, when creating your particle systems, it's also important to know that the viewport you make it in will typically determine the initial direction the particles travel. So, just like when making objects for a scene, it's important to think about the proper view to use when creating your particle systems. That view will determine the direction the particles flow. I'll make a snow system in each of my flat 2D views to show you the difference. Here's one in the top, one in the front, and one in the left-hand view. Let's now take our perspective view full screen. We'll deselect whatever might be selected, and we'll scrub through the timeline. Particles can also be affected by external forces like wind and gravity. They can be instructed to bounce or deflect off surfaces. You can even create your own customized shape for your particles using a control called instance geometry. So there's a ton of different things that you can do and virtually hundreds of different effects that you can make. Learn the options and get to experimenting with the controls. You'll soon be on your way to making whatever special effects your imagination can muster up.